What's going on YouTube? It's your boy, your guy, Afro Guy Kokujin, man. And I don't know, today, man, I had some things that are on my mind that I just wanted to, express and talk about. As you can see from the title of this video, it's kind of me going into, what it's really like to be a black person or a foreigner here in Japan. And one of the things that I realized from being in Japan for like 6 years, right? And y'all can see I'm just taking my morning stroll through Japan, check out the views and the scenery. Very beautiful, very peaceful. And I think that's one of the things that I can say about Japan that I really enjoy is the fact that it's really a peaceful place, right? Now, as far as my experience here in Japan, I think, how would I say this? I think it's very different, it's very different from America. Like, coming from America, we're used to a lot of, craziness, leniency. There's a lot of things in America that that I was used to, accustomed to, but coming to Japan, that kind of changes, the spectrum, the whole playing field, because, it's a whole different country with a different way of life, a different way of thinking, a whole different culture. And it's just not a bad thing, it is what it is. As Japanese people would say, shogunai, it is what it is. But I think, like, as a black person in Japan, one of the things that I can say that I've experienced would probably be like, I think the thing that people have to realize when you come to Japan is you have to embrace the fact that you're a foreigner. You just got to embrace it and use it to your advantage. Like, I see people always complain about, like, oh, we don't get treated the same. There's like a division between Japanese people and foreigners and blah, blah, blah. And you got to think Japan was an island that was isolated from everyone in the world for years, many, many years, right? So there is going to be somewhat of a division in the country. And, I think, like, it could be good or bad, just depends on your perspective. But as a black person here in Japan, I think one of the most important things is just embracing the fact that you're different, use that to your advantage. There's a thing that I like to call the don't give a F switch. And I think you have to turn that on. Like, in Japan, you definitely got to turn that on, because there's many times where I was very subconscious about, myself. I was like worried about my tattoos and just being different. Like, I almost let that like disable me at a certain point. You know what I mean? Like, it was almost like it was like a disability for me, right? But once I was able to kind of just like, you know what? No matter what, I can't change who I am. I am who I am. And I just got to embrace that, And once I started to just accept, like, I am different from everybody else in this country, I began to become more comfortable in my own skin. Like, I've always been comfortable in America because it's so diverse. It's a melting pot, right? So many different cultures, so many different people, right? It's just normal in America. But in Japan, you find yourself like in positions where, like, you might be the only black person or the only foreigner, like, in an area, or going into a restaurant, like going into like some of these old school traditional Japanese restaurants where it's like the menu there's no English menu, everything's in Japanese, and you're like a black person that walks in and like people stare at you like you're like a panda bear in a playground, you know what I mean? And it just feels like, I don't know, it can be overwhelming at times. But I think once you just like I said, turn on that I don't give a F switch, like, it seems like things tend to, I don't know, they get better. It's like you can just be more comfortable and do your thing, you know? That brings me to my next point, like racism, right? People always ask, like, yo, how are, my friends back home, they always ask, yo, how are Japanese people? Are they like, is it racist out there? How do they treat you? And I think, like, for me personally, I've never, like, not deliberately or like where I felt like it was intentional, I never experienced like racism, where I felt like somebody was being racist to me, right? Now, that's not to say that there aren't people here that are racist or people here that don't like certain ethnic groups, but I feel like for me personally, I've never experienced any racism or hatred towards black people in my presence, right? Now, I will say this. I do have friends, right? I do have friends that have experienced racism and, being called the N-word or, things like that, that I was, informed of. Now, for me personally, I've never experienced that. And y'all know me, I'm not going for that. So, like, take that how you want to take it. I'm not going for no disrespect. It doesn't matter what country it is, like we're not playing the N-word thing, but I've never personally experienced that. I feel like, from my personal experience of being in Japan, I feel like people here are very, how do you say, man? How would you say? They're like non-confrontational. You know what I mean? So, I don't really see people getting into too many, like fights or trying to, start confrontation with you because they're very non-confrontational. So like from my personal experience, I've never experienced like racism. But like I said, that's not to say that it doesn't happen here. It can happen anywhere. There's people that feel how they feel, no matter what country you go to. So I think, I'll leave that where that's at. And I think like just being in Japan, like being black, right? I think, like I said, embracing it, right? Embracing the fact that you're different. I think that creates opportunities. Like there's going to be opportunities that are going to be created for you here in Japan just based off the fact that you are a foreigner and you are a black person. That will, enable you to create different experiences just based on, your ethnicity in the country that you come from. I think that is something that you have to just accept, and like I said, embrace it. There's going to be good things that are going to come to you from being a different, being a foreigner, being different than everybody else that wouldn't come if you were, maybe say Japanese or Asian or things like that. So I think just embracing who you are and being yourself is going to, create experiences that you couldn't have got anywhere else. And I will say this, because I have to say this. Being in Japan, right, like everything is based off of the individual, right? So if you're a person that's like, for example, I'm probably going to end up walking back this way, but if you're a person, right, that's, I want to say like, if you're a person that's very like outgoing, like you're optimistic, you put yourself out there, you create opportunities for yourself, your experience is going to be completely different, right? From an individual who, let's say, just stays in the house every day, plays video games, watches anime. Like that experience is going to be completely different from a person that is like going out and trying to meet new people and, trying to see new things and just like putting themselves out there. That's like everything is kind of based on just who you are as an individual. So I will say that for sure. But I think like in Japan, just as a black person, it's solely based on, who you are as an individual. It's based on your personality, what kind of things you like to do, how much you try to meet new people, how much you go out there, because there are foreigners here that just stay in their apartment or their house or whatever all the time and don't go out and don't speak any Japanese. That's another thing, learning Japanese too, right? As just as a foreigner in general, right? But as a black person too, it's like learning Japanese will create more opportunities for you, and it'll make it easier for you to communicate with the people. And there are a lot of Japanese people that there's like a subgroup here that like they really take to black people, or they really take a liking towards black people. So, if they don't speak English and you could speak Japanese, it kind of bridges the gap between the language barrier. So I think that's another thing. Like, you'll find groups of people here that really like black people, that like hip hop, that like R&B, things like that. So being black will just, open up that door for you to be able to interact with those kind of people. So, I feel like that kind of explains my black experience. I mean, there's other things that I can get into, but I feel like those are the main things, like, just kind of embracing who you are. And I don't even know if it's so much of like black or like the color, but I think it's just more of I feel like it's more like a foreigner thing. Because in Japan, I don't feel like, from my personal experience, I don't feel like I've seen that much racism. It's kind of like Japanese and foreigners. It's not like, oh, you're black or you're white, or like I said, it may exist here, but like from my experience, I haven't seen it. So I don't know. That's kind of like my little rant and my little, whatever you want to call it, experience, my black experience. So that's kind of how I feel, man. If things do change, I'll definitely keep y'all updated. But y'all be safe, man. It's your boy, your guy, Afro Guy Kokujin. I'll see y'all in the next one, yo.